What is bringing us all here? Why are we here? Why are we not, if it's 4 p.m., why are we not sitting on a beach somewhere, enjoying the sun, just having a beer with friends? Or if it's 8 a.m., why aren't we just roll back, over and go to sleep for another few hours? Or even at 11 a.m., we could, sleep for a few more hours. Why are we all sitting here and talking about Torah together? What could possibly bring us here to this place? And in fact, to make that question a little bit bigger, what in general stops us from just living our lives, making ourselves comfortable from morning to night? Raise your hand if you've ever had like one day where you did nothing all day other than watch Netflix or stream something online and just eat ice cream or whatever, pizza, or had such a day. Just how'd you feel at the end of that day? How was that?
I felt very unaccomplished and just kind of I had like a bit of a headache and I felt a bit lazy. Like I wish I'd gone for a walk or something.
You had a little voice inside saying, I wish something else had happened today too, right? But why? That doesn't make sense. It's so comfortable to sit on the couch and just be entertained. And it's so comfortable to eat yummy ice cream or pizza or brownies all day. Why? Why is that not okay? In fact, what led you to do that to begin with? I mean, there's obviously a part of us that just wants to do that. So what's going on? And so what we're going to learn about today is that we have conflicting feelings inside, but that's not because we're crazy. It's not that we don't know what we want. Like, do I want to sit on the couch all day and just watch movies or listen to music or read a bunch of novels? Or do I want to go volunteer at my local Chabad and pack up food boxes for people who are sitting at home due to Corona? I want to go volunteer, but I feel like, but I could just sit here all day. What is that? Why are there these two different parts of me? What about when it's Friday night on campus, right? And it's like, I know there's a service happening at Chabad, but my friend invited me to go drinking with a bunch of our buddies. And then why isn't it clear what you want, right? You're like, I really want to go hang out with all my friends, but the rabbi called or the rabbi's wife called and told their services. Like, what would possibly call one to want to go to services if you could have so much fun? What is that? What is happening inside of us? And for a long time, people weren't sure. If someone just wanted to do nothing all day for a long time, maybe they felt like a bad person. Like, why do I want to just do nothing all day? And someone who maybe didn't have a stronger conscience would just feel like, great, let's just have, but what is actually happening inside of us? So a few years ago, about 300 and something years ago, to be more accurate, we got some insight about our inner workings, our inner psyche, that has changed the face of Jewish wisdom, of Jewish knowledge for all of times. And today, thank God, we have insight into what happens inside of ourselves. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, came onto the scene. He said, if we want to live our lives with true love of God or true awe of God, if we want to live our lives knowing why we're here and what we can accomplish while we're here, what we need is knowledge. What we need is to know. We need to understand what's happening. And so one of the first things that's really important to understand is, where do my desires come from? Where does my will come from? When I say I want something, but I want something else. But wait, I want something else. Am I just indecisive if I have two conflicting desires, two conflicting wants? Where does our desire come from? And when the Alter Rebbe explained to us, and this is Jewish spiritual anatomy 101, is that inside of us, we actually have two different drives. We have two different souls. We have two different inclinations. We have one soul that we're born with. That's called the animal soul. It's just what makes us a person. And our animal soul behaves somewhat like an animal in the way that an animal, its instincts are what drive it. But what's the difference between a human following their instincts and an animal following their instincts? If an animal, it's mealtime at the farm, every animal, what are they going to eat if they're just free to roam? An animal is going to eat whatever is best for it. There are some animals that eat the sweet grasses. There are some animals that eat bitter grasses. What are they going to base their desire on? What are they going to want the grass for? Honestly, it's based on whatever's going to keep them alive, right? Whatever's going to be good for them. An animal has a desire for productivity. If you stop a bee from producing honey, or you stop an ant from working in its colony, etc., they'll get very, very agitated. So the instinct of an animal leads it to be productive. How about reproduction? An animal, when it's mating season, when it's actually time to procreate, that's when they reproduce. They have reproductive activities when it's time to have little baby offsprings. What about people? If we're left to our own devices, if we follow our instincts, I'm just going to eat whatever tastes good to me today, where's that going to leave us? Right? If we follow our instincts of productivity, do some of us sometimes, well, I don't know, I could sit on the couch for days and days, or just lie on the beach for days and days, right? Our instincts are not exactly what leads us to live a successful life. So our animal soul cannot be the only thing that's happening in here, because if we're just following what we want and what we desire, as people, it leads us not toward successful, productive, happy lives, but there's actually something else going on. And what we have going on other than just our animal souls and our instincts is we have a godly soul. And what is our godly soul? Our godly soul is an actual part of God that is within us. And because she is a part of God, she desires what God desires. So what does that actually feel like? What does that actually look like? If we take a little zoom out, all the way out to before we were born, we're just a soul up in the universe, hanging out with God, watching what's happening in the world. So the soul, she's hanging out up there in heaven next to God, the godly soul. And because she's a part of God, she yearns to be one with God. And as she's just hanging out there in the universe, and a soul before she's in the body, godly soul before she's in the body, what do you think she can see, she can hear, she can be aware of? Well, the answer is a lot more than when she's in the body, right? She doesn't have the handicap of a body blinding her or making her deaf, right? Not being able to hear, being able to hear only a certain amount, being able to see only a certain amount. So the soul up there is pretty much infinite. It's not completely infinite like God, but she's able to see a lot further. She's able to see holiness. She's able to see godliness. Okay, so she's looking at God. And all the soul desires, all the soul wants is to be one with God again. All the soul wants is some attention from God, because the soul is absolutely in love with God and yearns to be with God. And yet the soul looks at God, and what does the soul see? Where's God's attention? God has this globe, the world, the earth, and God is always looking at that earth. And when someone in the world, a little 9-year-old child wakes up in the morning and takes some coins and puts it into the charity box and then washes his hands and starts praying, the soul sees, God is delighted. God just lights up with love and excitement and pleasure. And then when it's Pesach and a young woman eats a matzah that she received from her Chabad rabbi, God just lights up and is so excited. And then when the soul keeps looking and sees that, someone just insulted and offended somebody else in the world, and God gets disappointed and gets upset, right? And feels pained. So the whole time, as the soul up there tries to get God's attention, it realizes, wait, but God, what God's desire is, what God wants is that mitzvahs should be done here in this world. And what pains God or bothers God is when people are hurt each other here in this world, or when averas are done, right? When someone sins, does something that God says, please don't eat, something that's not kosher. Someone says, but I really, 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 really want it. I know I shouldn't eat this, but I really want it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and eat it. And then God feels disappointed, right? So the soul witnesses all of this. And she says, my goodness, I want to make you happy, God. I want to give you that pleasure. I want you, God. I want your dreams to come true. I want to make sure that this world becomes a better place in the way that you dream of. But the soul has to wait because it's up there and it needs to have a body to come into. And finally, one day, an angel takes the soul, leads it by the hand and says, today is your day. A baby is going to be born. There's this perfect body, perfect for you, for what your mission is going to be, is being born to the world today. And it is time for you to take this journey and make your way into the world. And the soul is beyond excited. All of her dreams are coming true. Now she gets to journey into the world and she gets to make God happy. And she gets to unite with God and be one with God. Because of course, every time a mitzvah is done, that's exactly where God is. She comes down into this world, right? There's in the hospital room or the house room, wherever the birth happens, suddenly the soul is born. But now, it's like, what's going on? I can't see anything. I can't hear anything. The only thing that the body can see when it's born is maybe like a foot or two away, can see the mother's face. The only thing you can hear is within that room. Right? Suddenly she's so limited and she's like, okay, is it time to do mitzvahs? Is it time to do mitzvahs? And, you know, the animal soul's like, I want to eat. I want to drink. So the godly soul's like, okay, I guess there's going to be some eating and drinking, but then maybe we'll be able to do a mitzvah. And a few years go by. This isn't 100% accurate, by the way. The godly soul makes its way into the body after the animal soul. The godly soul makes its way into the body at age in different stages, but at bar and bat mitzvah is a time when a significant portion of the godly soul makes its way into the body. So let's take it up from there. Right now it's the body is 12, the body is 13, depending on if it's a male or a female, a boy or a girl. And now let's say you wake up in the morning and the godly soul says, yay, I got my energy back. Thank you, God, for bringing me back into this world. Is it time to do a mitzvah yet? And the animal soul says, nah, let's roll over and go to sleep for another half hour. And the godly soul has no choice because she could try to wiggle in there and make her voice heard. And that's that voice that we sometimes do hear that says, come on, get out of bed. I want to get to sun and study. I want to learn some Torah today. Right? That's, if you're here, you heard that voice. And so as the day goes on, there's constantly this struggle between the animal soul and the godly soul. Who's going to rule the body? Who's going to have control over these arms and these legs and this mind and the heart and the intestine, the digestion, right? Is the taste buds the one that's going to make a decision? Am I going to eat the entire, the entire chocolate cake that's sitting there on the counter? Or am I going to eat something that's going to be nutritious and give me energy to serve God, to do a mitzvah, to daven, to study, to pray or to study? And where do our souls live in our bodies? It's interesting to think that the soul has a primary place where it occupies, but the Alter Rebbe actually teaches us that they do have different places where they live. By the way, I just want to say, if anyone has any questions, just unmute yourself and ask, because if it becomes abstract or theoretical, then you can ask any questions and we can answer them. Okay, so where do those live? The godly soul and the animal soul. And so the Alter Rebbe teaches us that the animal soul primarily lives in the blood. It's the life force. And in the left side of the heart. The left side of the heart is the part of the heart where the blood gets filled with oxygen again before pumping out to the rest of the body. Where primarily does the godly soul live? The godly soul primarily lives in the mind and in the right side of the heart. And so we're going to learn a little bit more tomorrow about the intellect versus the emotions. But in general, whereas an animal follows its instincts and just does what it desires, and as a human being, maybe most of our time here in this world, we live based on our instinct and what we want and our desire, because it's kind of hard to live based on the godly soul. It's easier to just follow along and say, hey, this is what I want, and therefore this is how, this is what I'm going to have. It's difficult to make a decision that goes against what we want. But as we're going to learn a little bit more tomorrow, because the godly soul primarily lives in the mind is going to be the tool that ultimately allows us to live Jewish successful lives, right? A successful life as a Jewish woman or a Jewish man, when we follow our minds and our minds rule over our hearts. Okay, so here's the question, a question. If I have a godly soul that just desires to do mitzvahs, just desires to pray and to study and to learn, and then I have an animal soul that desires my comfort, my desires, what I want, food, sleep, drink, entertainment, etc. Is it a good idea to just cancel my animal soul, right? Ignore my animal soul. I'm not going to live based on what I want. I'm going to live based on just thinking about God, studying about God. I'm just going to do mitzvahs. I'm just going to do only godly things here in this world. And I have to get rid of my animal soul. Is that a good idea? To say like, I just have to fight my animal soul. And actually the answer is that God does not create us with an animal soul to vanquish it and to extinguish it and to just kill it. That's not why God creates our animal soul. What is the strength? What's the advantage of an animal? Think of, for example, what can you accomplish? Let's say you're a farmer. What can you accomplish with your own two hands, your hands and feet, versus what could you accomplish if you have a set of strong oxen at your disposal, right? How much of a field can you plow if you're just walking on your own with a shovel? How much of a field can you plow if you have an ox that you can use at your disposal? Right? The answer is clear. The animal is the strength that we have. Meaning, what do we do with our animal soul? Our animal soul is where we get our passion. Our animal soul is where it's in our heart, in our blood. The blood is hot. The blood is constantly flowing, right? The blood is hot, whereas the mind, which is mostly made up of water, is cold. So yes, it's true that you could be just, you could just live a cold life, just blindly doing everything that you should be doing. But that's not the way that's not why God sends us into this body with an animal soul as well. What God says is, I need that heat. I need that passion. I need the desire. When you wake up in the morning and you say, I crave a coffee, I want a coffee. Oh my gosh, like I really, really need, right? Sometimes we want something and we think we need it. My gosh, I need a coffee. And think about what that feels like inside. Or if you're not a coffee person, think about what it feels like, anything that you desire, right? Oh my gosh, it smells so good. Is my mom making pancakes? Is my roommate making pancakes? I just want those right now, right? And suddenly we have a desire. We have a yearning. There's a feeling inside. What we need to do is we take that feeling that comes from our animal soul, and that's the key to how we're going to relate to God. So I just want to actually look at one little prayer that we say in the morning to make this real. When God asks us to pray in the morning, in the afternoon, this is going to segue right into your Chavrusa sessions, right? Moving on soon in a few minutes. When God asks us to pray in the morning, what does he tell us? When he asks us to bring up the sacrifices back in the day when there was a holy temple, and now asks us to pray in the morning, God says, God spoke to Moshe, right? And he said, Es karbani lachmi, my karban, my offering, lachmi, my bread. Ishai, one second, let me just open it real quick to get the words. Leishai, for my fire, reach nichaychi, a pleasant aroma for me. Tishmuru lahakriv li b'maydei, please guard them to offer up to me every day. So what is God speaking about here? He's talking about the offerings that used to be brought up in the temple, but today it refers to prayer. When we pray in the morning, we say prayer in the morning. What God says is, this is my bread. When you down here in this world, when you pray to me, or we can also expand that, when you do a mitzvah, that's my bread. That's a pleasant aroma for me, a bread for my fire, as well as a pleasant aroma for me. And I request of you, please, tishmuru, guard it. Guard it, la krivli, to bring to me, to give it to me every morning. And what is God telling us in those words? He's saying, you know what gets you pumping in the morning. You know what smells good to you in the morning. Oh my gosh, like, is that pancakes being made in the kitchen? Is that fresh brewed coffee in the kitchen? You know what it feels like when something is a delightful, a pleasing aroma to you. You know what it's like to desire your bread, right? You know what lights your fire. I'm telling you that when you do a mitzvah in the world, I desire it. It's something that I want. Now, if we didn't have feelings of wanting something, how would we know what God means when God says, I want something? So when we learn now, God says, this is what I desire. I desire that you turn to me, that we connect today when we say our prayers, that we connect when we eat matzah on Pesach, that we connect when you give tzedakah. We connect in any mitzvah that you do. We have to, that's where we get the energy, we get the understanding from our animal soul, that part of us that does yearn, that does connect, that does want things, that craves things. And in fact, just a tiny little additional, right, secret insight here. What is stronger? Our mind, what we know logically, or our desire, things that we want? What's stronger? Something you know in your mind, or something that you just want, even if it makes no sense? Ashira, you want to unmute? You were saying something?
Desires.
Desire, right. How many times have you been up, let's say at past midnight, studying with your friends, and then you're like, wouldn't I just love a slice of pizza right now? And you're like, no, I am never going to fall asleep if I just eat like a slice of pizza right now. Or it's just a terrible idea to have a slice of pizza at 2 a.m. That's just not the right time to have a slice of pizza. And so you have this fight within yourself between your mind, your logical mind that says, really not a great way to function if I'm going to have a slice of pizza at 2 a.m., especially if I'm going to have 4 slices of pizza at 2 a.m., because you know what happens when you eat that first slice at 2 a.m., right? Then you'll have a second slice and a third. Not a good idea. But then there's a part of you that says, but I want it. Who's going to ultimately win if you actually have pizza at home on the counter sitting there? It's a hard one, right? Our desire really pushes us a lot further and gets us a lot further to go for what we want. So the key, if we want to live based on our godly soul, the key is we need to remember what the godly soul wants by, first of all, remembering, what does it mean to want? What does it mean when I want something? Oh, that's what it feels like. Okay, well, let me remember what my godly soul wants. Oh, my godly soul wants to make God's dreams come true. Wow, and God waited all night for me to wake up so that I can now do a mitzvah here in this world? And my godly soul waited all night for me to wake up so that I could do a mitzvah here in this world? This is like a win-win. If I can go ahead, stop resisting that voice and actually do that mitzvah, get up off the couch, stop scrolling, or however I'm procrastinating in the morning, get up off that couch, open up a prayer book, or open up, there's prayers on Chabad.org too, by the way. I should put up that link. Really, really beautiful prayer book that has lots of explanations, like meditations also, to learn. So anyway, so that's briefly the struggle that happens within us when it's like, well, should I go to Chabad for the Friday night services, or should I follow my friends and go drinking? Should I get out of bed? Should I just roll over and sleep for another hour and a half and miss that time that I could have to study a little bit before work or pray a little bit before work? Or should I get out of bed and do that mitzvah, etc. That is the some insight for why we have those struggles. We have two completely separate souls struggling within ourselves. And as we navigate through life, just a little blessing that we should have, using this insight, we should have a little bit more compassion for our godly soul, the soul that yearns to make God's dreams come true, and a little bit more compassion upon God himself as well, who's waiting for us to make this world a better, more united place where all of us are taking care of each other, making sure that everyone in the world has food to eat, has education, has right. What does it mean to make the world a better place? It's taking care of everyone who's here and doing mitzvahs that connect us to God.